This is aPauling News. I'm Paul Chato. We are diving into yet another Reading Between the Lines video. This one came to our attention back in December of last year. We're bringing it to you now because we still have a massive backlog of stupid shit to get through. And speaking of which, here is an ex-CBC producer explaining to us how Canada's public broadcaster caves to social media pressure.
And I really want to echo what Kamyar said about the importance of that Overton window shifting and how it translates to change in these newsrooms. I think institutions like the CBC really do respond to public pressure, to shaming, and also to the strength of social movements on the ground.
Right off the bat, we here at aPauling News, which clearly has much higher standards than the CBC, has a problem. Public pressure and shaming are two sides of the same coin. If you actually did your jobs right, then why would you be afraid of public pressure or shaming? Responding to social movements means you're a pussy.
And so when these movements are strong, the journalists and editors inside also feel emboldened to reflect that popular sentiment and also to push their superiors, to push their newsrooms to do better.
We disagree. A movement is either worthy of being covered or not. If size is your only criteria, then change your name to TMZ or Z here in Canada. Spending your precious time pushing your superiors to do better is way more important than actually doing journalism? Yes, that's exactly how Woodward and Bernstein broke the Watergate story, we understand.
And we've seen this before. I mean, I was there at the CBC in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd at the hands of the police, and the subsequent upsurge that there was in activism against police brutality and racist policing and in favor of protecting Black lives.
Because there is nothing more all-consuming to a Canadian news organization than covering an American event that happened 4 years ago.
And there was a lot of discussion, not just related to CBC, but just in general about how claims around objectivity and neutrality meant that news outlets weren't covering and telling the truth about these injustices.
There is a lot to unpack here. Something that is true and factual is not the same as truth. Truth can be subjective, apparently. We all have our own truths now. You're saying objectivity and neutrality are not important? I remember hearing about the great journalist Edward R. Morrow saying objectivity and neutrality when he brought down Senator Joe McCarthy. Telling truth about injustices? When did CBC reporters become Judge Dredd? Actually, that would be pretty cool.
They were uncritically, just parroting what the police had said. They weren't covering protests.
Parroting what any official says is not journalism. And covering a protest march is also not journalism. That's like being a grand marshal at the Rose Bowl parade.
They weren't giving enough airtime to activists on the ground. And at the CBC, this became a really, really hot button issue where journalists on the inside were saying enough is enough.
Not giving enough time to activists was a hot button issue, except when they were looting and setting fires to stores and journalists ran for cover.
Like, I feel stifled. I'm being told that I can't pitch these stories. My pitches are being turned down.
Stifled? Go talk to your grief counselor. Did you ever think that perhaps your pitches sucked?
I can't attend protests, I am told.
We sympathize. We're also lazy. We'd like nothing more than to hold up our iPhone, record the angry, spitting crowd, get a quote from a lunatic, and go home. No point in digging or getting a unique angle, different from what all the other mainstream networks are showing. That might actually interest your viewers. We think that's called journalism.
They are monitoring my social media presence.
Based on this video, doubt if you're worth the effort.
And all of this talk about objectivity is really getting in the way of giving people the full picture, as we are here to do.
We believe that objectivity is exactly what you're there to do. Has aPauling News got this wrong, or has the acid worn off?
And so there were many internal conversations, there were open letters, there were meetings, there were working groups, there were exposés that were written by people who formerly worked there and had left.
Holy crap, more meetings. No wonder CBC News sucks and no one watches it. This has been aPauling News, and that's the way it is.